Okay, we're fixing to get started, everybody. First thing I'd like to do is welcome our new members. We're so glad to have y'all with us. And I'm going to start, we're going to go around the table, let everybody introduce themselves so everybody will know who the players are now. I'm Ronnie Perry.
Bob Franklin.
Jane Fraser.
Lance Seavey.
Bob Turgeson.
Mary Harris.
Ron Malden.
I'm Phil Greatser.
And let's start on the outside and go around.
Alan Allers.
Jim Brown.
Catherine Downs.
Go ahead.
What's his name?
I'm not a player anymore.
Oh, okay.
Well, what are you doing here?
Watching you. Cyclone Joe Water Sewer Commission.
I've been asked to move the election of officers up to the number 2 spot. Unless anybody has an objection, we'll do that. And I'll open the floor for nominations for chairman and vice chairman.
I nominate Ronnie Perry for chairman.
Second.
Nominate Bob Franklin,
Second.
chairman.
Any other nominations for chairman? All those in favor of Bob Franklin, raise your hand.
You set that one up, Ronnie.
Congratulations, Bob.
Ronnie, you set that one up.
And,
What was that all about?
now we'll nominations for vice chair.
Ronnie Perry.
Second.
Who'd you nominate?
She second.
I seconded
Seconded.
yours.
Anybody else? Any others? Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you, sir. We've got folks, 5 years to go here, folks. So I hope everybody gets a chance to chair a meeting as we go along. But thank you.
5 years?
About right.
Total. 4 years left.
Yeah, I thought it was a
Yeah.
3-year committee.
We might even see some serious money by the end of this thing, the way it's coming in. Well, I think our meeting today is designed to be a little bit different. Rather than receiving reports both in writing and verbally from the constituent entities that are expending the funds, a request of the members, we thought we'd talk a little bit about who we are and what our duties are and what information we'd like to see and when we'd like to see it and so forth. So I'm looking for a real conversation and participation by everybody on that, because we've had about a year of meetings that Jane would tell you, if you know what a board meeting looks like, we haven't looked much like a board. We've been mainly getting information from the very diligent individuals we have doing all this work out in the county. And we've appreciated that, but I think we now need to turn to ourselves and decide what our role is going to be and what our bylaws empower us to be and so forth. So hopefully it'll be an interesting conversation. As a matter of record, why don't we, I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the January meeting, which Matthew thankfully got out
So moved.
ahead of time.
Second.
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 All in favor? Thank you. Matt has promised us, by the way, Alan, thank you very much for getting us Matt Kent.
Yes, sir.
He means a lot to us, and he's really made a big difference. And we will now have our minutes in an accessible form and available for everyone to see much more rapidly than the county staff has been able to produce today, and we appreciate that. It's an important function of a successful entity of this nature, is to know what you said and what motions you had and so forth. And of course, to meet our overall goal of transparency to the greater community.
So right now, I'd like to interrupt you. Although we're getting the minutes at least in a manner that we can at least read them before the minute.
Yeah.
We're still not doing it in terms of the 3 entities involved.
Well,
One report came in this morning. One came in yesterday.
Yeah.
The counties came in about 2 weeks ago.
Right.
But it's it's not the kind of reporting that
we
needs
want
to be
that
done.
information a lot more rapidly, and I think today we can talk together about the substance of the information as we like. And
Well, Mr. Kilgore brought it up as early as last October, that this needed to be put into a format that was readable and understandable, and there really has been no response. So I think we really need to think about how our committee now is going to react to the ignoring of our request.
Would you like to talk first about that? And we can go in any order today.
Well, I brought it up, so I brought it up to, I mean, quite frankly, that I have a report this morning that I haven't read yet from the Water and Sewer Commission, and I have a report from the city that I can't understand.
Yeah.
And we have been asking for formats for those for a long time, so I cannot judge at this meeting what progress the city has made at all, other than I see some expenditures. The water and sewer, because of their previous materials, which have been quite good, I am. But I mean, here we are, and I think we're left with saying that we're not getting the materials that we need to judge this.
Yeah.
And since we've said this, at least since last October, and if I could find my June minutes, maybe since before that.
Let's decide what those materials would consist of, ideally, and then about how far in advance of the meeting it would be good to have it. So I would propose, say, 2 weeks in advance of the meeting, certainly no less than 1 week in advance of the meeting. All the materials, whatever it is we decide we want, make it clear to the city, the county, and the commission, and any other source. That would mean, of course, that we'd have our minutes shortly after this meeting, which I hope Matt will get for us, and an agenda sufficiently far in advance that it can tie the materials off to the agenda. So,
Well, I would think that,
tell us what
you
you'd
and
like to
Ronnie,
see.
as the chairman, should be developing the agenda. This is a responsibility of
Right.
the officers,
Exactly.
not the county public
Exactly.
information office.
yeah,
So you guys need to do the agenda.
That's right.
I think that, I think we need materials, and again, it seems that the city is most at fault here. We need materials that have the projects, the timelines, the next measurable goal, and the expenditures. It is not rocket science, and I would hope that our that our report. What the problem is, that this has come up now at least for 3 meetings, and we've been ignored. So the question is, what do we do about it, man?
My concern, follows you, definitely, is that I think we need to, as a group, decide these are the things that are our requirement in terms of the reporting. So is it the project, the scope, where it's at on the timeline, what the projected timeline, what the projected budget is, how much expenditures have been allocated so far to that budget, and then a status report basically on where they're at in the whole thing. And I agree with you, there has been some frustration that all those pieces we haven't seen lined up yet for the city, unfortunately. So I would propose that we figure out what all those elements are and try to get all 3 entities to be very consistent with that. And so we can look at them, wholeheartedly and measure them all consistently, I guess.
yeah. One of my thoughts on that topic is our bylaws charge us to assure the citizens of Glenn County that the work being done under SPLOST is consistent with what they voted on. And as yet, and I think we need to ask the 3 constituent entities to provide this, I haven't seen an exhibit that ties a particular project. You all have numbers of yours, and they're all numbered, or named in the case of Jim's project, so the county. Tied exactly to the ballot so that we can see or say, you voted for this and this is what happened to that. It could be that it needs a simple numbering system, just like number 1 through 29 or whatever it is.
Well, I think the county's doing quite a good job in terms of listing their projects by ballot item. With the three
Well, they-
exceptions
they-
of the
they do it-
roundabouts
they do
where
it
there's
by
an
name, and
interpretation.
sometimes the names are inconsistent. So I'd like to see sort of a master sheet just to start with from each of the three entities. Here's the project that was voted on, and that was the description written on the ballot, which was all passed by the commission and voted on by the voters. This is the project, and here's what we call it, and here's how it's coming along and so forth. Just a way of tying off of that to be sure that we haven't missed anything as an orphan project, or that a project is snuck in that wasn't on the ballot or whatever. So it's a small housekeeping thing, but I think it'd be a great place to start.
Bob, can we ask the presenters, the entities, to red flag certain piece of information for us? For instance, if they missed the timeline. I don't know how you all do it. I don't go back through all the presentations and say, oh, this is what you said in October, but this is what you said in January. Maybe I should do that, but that seems like a lot of time to do that. Is it possible to have some way where they'd red flag, put it in red? We previously presented this as we'd reach this goal by September 1st.
Yeah.
We didn't make it. And here's why. I don't care how you
Right. explain
explain it, but you explain it
Yeah.
for us. And that way we can focus on that a little bit better rather than have to go back through it.
Yeah. Well, in oversight, you really don't care very much about the things that are going well. You're delighted that things
Right.
are going well.
Right.
And one of the things I'm hoping to suggest to the group is that we find a way to praise. We should be able to say, you guys on this particular set of projects are really doing the job. Or we could even praise specific individuals. For example, and I'll mention the name today because he's not here. I think Dave Austin is a terrific guy. It seems to me that he is doing a great job, and I know during the hurricane he was particularly active. It'd be nice if we could figure out a way to say to an individual like that, maybe even Alan, hey, you guys are doing a pretty good job on this, and be able to offer praise so that the citizens out there that we're transparently reporting to know that there are individuals doing that. But what's going well is great. And of course, at the moment, very little is going anywhere because the money's still just really beginning to roll in, and very little work being done on many of the smaller projects. We bought some cop cars and stuff like that. But the serious work of what's happening with this money is probably a year or 2 years away. And at that point, we need a system that tells us instantly that everything in this package is okay, but this one over here we need to pay some attention to. And the more the county commission and city can identify those projects, this one, guys, is just not going the way we thought it would. That's going to be more money, twice as much money. We don't have the money to finish it, or whatever. And then I think we need to consult our council at some point with Alan's assistance, is what can we actually do about that? In other words, let's game a situation. Let's pick 3 situations that could run a budget overrun. Or the commission decides we don't want to do this project anymore. What can we do under those kinds of circumstances?
And even more elementary, what's the vehicle for reporting it? Are you talking about a written report to the commissioners, to Alan, to a public report that you make available on the website?
Well, they should report to us. Self-reporting, we're the only place we're ever going to get the information is they're going to give it to us. So,
But
You
are
know,
saying
if we
how it
don't
gets
get the
commissioners?
breakdown on some of these expenditures, it's very difficult to tell what kind of job they're doing. So for example, dock repair is $300,000, but you know perfectly well that it shouldn't have been more than $150,000. How are you going to judge any of these without more breakdown of these figures that we're getting? That's what I'd like to look for.
good.
Without information, we can't have any oversight.
Yeah.
I mean, if we just get told when something's finished, there's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
We need to be involved in every step of it and know that we're on budget with that particular item and what the time frame, what a real time frame is. And, not doing a project is not an option. and taking money from one to finish another should not be an option. We just have to have the information to make decisions, because without that, we can't have any oversight. And I think after, not the last one, but the one before that, we found out loud and clear that some of the commissioners don't want us to have any input at all, which is not what we're for. I think if they want a committee that's going to say, you came in under budget and on time, this is not the one. You know, we need some hard figures and hard facts so we can make some decisions.
Yeah, it seemed to us that the commission was in favor of overlooking on oversight, and I think we want to really look at stuff and have a point of view and follow through on that. So.
And when we identify concerns on specific projects,
Yeah.
what's our mechanism of reporting? Obviously, we have ways to communicate with the open public, but what's our next step once we identify there's an issue?
Well, step one is always transparency.
Mhm.
And with Matt on the job now, we're going to have minutes in a couple of weeks. It'll say right in there.
Right.
Those minutes go right up on the website. Taylor, if he picks up on it, or one of his representatives, it'll be in the paper tomorrow.
Well,
So that kind of transparency and broadcast capability is really step number one for us. And then our subsequent conversations, and probably we're going to have to go to the commission if we see an issue, because it's their money and they're doing the work, and say, we are concerned about this.
Right.
And I'm hoping, despite our initial rejection, that we can do a little backgrounding on some of these topics. I, for example, would like to learn more about what a good traffic study looks like. Traffic's a big issue here to the citizens of this county. And so we suggested to the commission, you guys are running on kind of an elderly traffic study here. Would you be willing to think about that? Mm-hmm. And, the nuclear weapon showed up. They sent our good friend ours back here to explain to us that we need to know what we're doing. Here's what I'd like to do. It's my solution. I'd be interested in your thoughts. That study, the so-called pond study, was roundly criticized by a couple of very well-qualified professionals who did that in writing. And so I took the liberty of contacting one of those individuals and saying, would you be willing to come into our committee and just at no charge, and just sit and tell us what a good traffic study looks like? What should we recognize? Help us understand and learn what a quality traffic study looks like, and then we can make judgments and suggestions, from that. And he said, sure. So if you all are willing, I'd like to put that guy on the next agenda and take 15 minutes or so, and find out from a qualified expert. And this is a guy who's done 100,000 of them. And roundly criticized, professionally criticized, thoughtfully criticized the pond study, and not to attack the pond study, but rather just help us understand, if we are going to have oversight here, to have a context in which to have that oversight. Because I don't know, traffic study from another, is a toll booth an idea, or what the hell is it?
Mr. Chairman, I do think, I think this is important, but it really is out of the realm. It's actually falling right into the areas that we were told not to do. We were told to manage the projects, and I think bringing up traffic study now is water over the dam. I think county needs a traffic study. I think that we as citizens, not as committee members, need to lobby for something like that and see that the response, is that the county might commission one. But to look at an old traffic study and to be experts in what should and should not be in it is kind of wasting our time.
I disagree firmly. I think the more we know about traffic, because remember, it's not over. We're just starting down that road with more population. So we all need to educate ourselves. It isn't just the Oversight Committee, but if the county is operating off a plan that isn't correct, then we certainly need to know what we're talking about when we criticize it. Mm-hmm. And that is what Oversight's about, I think.
But we need for all three entities to understand that when we ask for information, we're not telling them what to do.
Yes.
You know, if we
Yeah.
make a suggestion, that's what it is. And I think they perceived our last request as trying to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
And I didn't perceive it that way at all. But if we can't have any input, then we're wasting our time here.
Yeah. Well, I was impressed and delighted by Chairman Brunson's willingness to come here and be with us in the meeting after that event took place, and to remind us that they really do want our input and our suggestions and ideas. And I think we need to find a way of conveying that input in a polite and confident way. And to me, becoming more intelligent about the topic. If we're spending 15 or 20 million bucks to help traffic in the county, then why shouldn't we take a little time and educate ourselves and understand a little bit better what's happening with that? Yeah, it's not that particular project, but you know, there's a lot of traffic money in our budget, a lot of traffic money in our budget. And I just prefer knowledgeable oversight to mechanical oversight. So I think, Philip, we really ought to, my strong suggestion is take a little time. We don't have to become world-class experts, but at least get some sense about what the conversation is what some of the vocabulary is, and how this sort of works.
I would rather spend our time trying to get firm handle on the projects that are ongoing now.
We do need to spend a good bit of time on that.
And figuring out a strategy of what to do when they're not ongoing as they should be. I did spend I did spend all of yesterday going through the Glynn County materials, and it's all there. Some of it, you know, I have difficulty figuring out the initials, but if I gloss over that, there's a consistent activities going on under each of the projects, which are the projects that are listed in the resolution that was passed for the ballot.
Yeah.
There's some questions. Now, I can fault the county for not being making it a little more user-friendly. But I think that this is not a bad format of what's going on with the county. The problem is that we really don't have chances to study it. And being in a poor format, it just kind of goes past us.
Yeah.
But, you know, there is a consistent progression from April of last year to March 21st of this year of what's going on in each of these 20-some projects.
Yeah.
And the same goes for water and sewer, which is a little harder for me to understand because it's in a different format, but yet it's there. I don't, you know, if we stay away from the questions of judging whether the project should be or shouldn't be done, then and only look at progress, we're making progress.
And again, I go back to my point about, okay, so we identify what all the areas we're looking at from all three entities, and then we identify with the help of the staff with which ones are overrun or out of scope or whatever the case may be, and then focus on those items. And maybe step one is meet individually with the staff who's in charge of that, whether it's the county or the city or joint water and sewer. And on the agenda, we have an extra 15 minutes to just to talk about that specific project and outline well, what the heck is going on and try to address the issue. And maybe we also need to also discuss having, you know, quarterly reports that we deliver to the commission, both the city and the county, you know? So we're giving them a progress report of what we're seeing and what we're observing, and you know, giving them updates. Hey, these few projects we're super alarmed about. We need you guys to jump on and help support getting it back on track, for lack of a better word.
Jim, let me ask you a question. Let's say on the next agenda, we asked you to pick one, maybe two of the particular projects that you're working on, and have at your selection some of the individuals that are involved in those projects come in and in 10 or 15 minutes just tell us what's going on with that. We particularly want to see projects that have some potential for being in trouble. I know you don't have any of those, but maybe you could bring us a cop car to look at or something. And would you be able to do something like that, you think? Yeah.
But trouble, Bob, is defined as not just a cost overrun, but a time lapse,
Right.
or a problem of meeting the timeline. For
Well, these are the guys that own the project, so they ought to make the first
Well,
choice. I
yeah.
think.
You know, but as a committee member, I have questions. For instance, the dirt road paving projects have all been moved a year in terms of their completion. Now, if we're going to leave it to the county or the city or the water commission to come in and talk about a project, we're not going to pick up this. They're going to talk about the things that are going right. So I think we need to proactively look at the materials and say, I want to hear about the dirt road projects.
Yeah.
Yep.
There might be a real simple reason, but it just wanted that if you look at April last year and March this year.
Well, Jim, maybe the way we could do that is maybe you and I and one other committee member could have a conversation with you. Maybe 3 weeks ahead of the next meeting, or whenever the agenda is being set, and you could say, I'd like to recommend you guys take a special look at this project, and we could talk about it and decide that we're comfortable with that, and you could be prepared.
Yeah, we'd be glad to do that.
Slides, videos, blue lights, the whole.
Okay. I think on some of ours, and just to make it a little clearer, I know that the county has a very detailed list of projects. And when it went to the voters, I believe those projects were already pre-identified, is that right? And so when Mr. Hours made the presentation during the SPLOST meetings prior to the vote, he could identify each project on each road or intersection in detail. The city never had that on the ballot. We had not done the pre-engineering for a lot of these projects. We had lists of priority streets that needed paved. We had drainage problems, but we had never gone out to the level of pre-engineering everything because we never expected to have that in our money in any near future. To engineer it early would be premature for us. And so we identified problems, paving, drainage, but we did not have a detailed street there, how many feet of asphalt would be used, or how many manholes would be placed. And so we had not pre-engineered it. So our ballot language is actually what you have on your city report on that column, in that very first column. It's all we submitted for ballot was categories, but not specific street intersections. And so some of them do not have the detail of total projects and timelines.
Yeah.
And do we have those now, Bill?
We're filling it in as we go. I mean, as we know we have top priorities, and we've done engineering now on drainage. We have identified our street list of how much we can pave. Of course, paving, cost of asphalt kind of goes up and down with the cost of oil. But you're seeing priorities being met and engineered now, but we didn't pre-engineer everything in advance.
But now that you're a year into the pre-engineering phase, would it be possible in the next 3 months to be able to develop a timeline for each of those ballot items and let us know where we're going? Even if you don't, even if it's a question like we need another study or something like that.
I think the hard ones are going to be the drainage and our largest ticket items, which was the drainage and the milling and paving, is not all. We can't even today say how to spend the very last penny of the $4 million because we haven't allocated it all out to a given street or intersection. We're still kind of putting that together, but we're still in the meantime working on top priorities and having it all engineered. Our top priority for drainage, for example, is College Park. And so when that's coming in, it's being studied, and it didn't have engineering before, so we couldn't tell you take yet to pay the cost to do the construction. We're getting close. But on a lot of the others, yes, we had spelled out projects, and we could do that into that detail. But yes, if you have a particular project or a line item that we have in great detail, we could do it, and others are going to be a little bit open-ended because we haven't completed all the design engineering.
Even if it's just the fire trucks, that to me is a really interesting problem. So,
Okay.
Okay, back on what we want to see and what we want to see. I think we're making some progress. We want to see it well in advance. We want to see an agenda well in advance of the meeting. We want to see source materials well in advance of the materials meeting, and we want to understand those materials when we see them. So they need to be something we're familiar with because we've seen before. And then which issue we talk about at the meeting, that'll develop as the agenda develops, I think. And we're certainly now with Matthew on the job, we're going to see our minutes momentarily. In fact, I think he's been writing them right along there.
Not that quick.
I think he's one of those millennials, and you know how troublesome he is. All right, Philip, we're making progress on your needs and wishes here.
Well, I still don't think we've done anything. We really need to be specifying a formula, a format, and that includes this timelines. And I think the one thing that we did come up with today that Lance brought up is that in that format, they need to highlight for us the problem areas where they, you know, where there's slippage or where there are potential problems.
I know a volunteer when I see one. I'd be happy to work with you. Can we write that up so that people can understand what we're talking about? And, a brief memo.
If we can bring Lance in on this too, because he's
happy
he's a project manager.
I mean, I'm happy in terms of like, I think we're all in agreement that out of all three entities, the county we feel is probably doing the most sufficient job in reporting currently. So what I did was just highlighted maybe some of the columns that I feel like if we could see these things from all the entities consistently, then I would be able to compare. So I just listed the name of the project, and it would be great if that name of that project was tied into the ballot item, target priority, SPLOST estimate in terms of budget, scope of work, status, and then next milestone date. And those are just, I would say, the bare minimum. And I don't know if anybody else has additional feedback.
Potential problem.
Yep, and then the potential. Yeah, so I don't know if that would just go under status or what, but maybe that's a whole separate column. Yeah. I don't know if other
I think
people
one
have
of the
feedback.
problems that we're faced is we're using reverse arithmetic. We say we've got this much money, now how are we going to spend it?
Yep.
Instead of saying this is what the project's going to be and we need this much money to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know.
Yep.
I mean, one of the higher odd things on our thing is the Spur 25 connector intersection, $3.25 million, and we don't have a clue what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Or at least I haven't heard anything. We got a clue
Sure.
what we're going to do.
Good point.
If somebody can solve that for $3.2 million, they're a miracle worker. But that's one of the big ticket items on here.
Right.
I'm very fond of analogies, and I recall when my daughter got married. My wife, of course, was the mother of the bride, and she explained to my daughter, she said, "Look, this may be the happiest day of your life, but it's my wedding." And I have a feeling we're going to start tiptoeing in that direction here. These are all projects that these guys are doing, and they're spending the money, but we really want to know what's going on. And I think if we can convey that, which I think we are today, it'll begin to be seen in the results. But I would like to invite both of you really then to help. Let's just memorialize that in the next few days, so that there's no question that we had to speak through an intermediary, a minute taker, or whatever. Here's what we're talking about, and the three of us can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Happy to help.
Any other volunteers that want to join us, but it's clear we need something. And I think both of you are right on the track. That looks like a hand up over there. Yes, sir. Mr. Hours.
From the county perspective, we welcome that. We had already talked on staff level that you probably are getting tired of us going through 40 projects on the sheet each meeting, and we're far enough along with these projects, but we wanted to start identifying, a couple of them at each time we met and give you more detail. So, what you said fits right in line, and so we can plan to do those, if you like, a couple projects each meeting, and then we'll also identify for you those projects that there are issues with. We have some of those, and we're naturally going to have that. So we certainly agree with that.
Very helpful.
We'll proceed in that direction for the next meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
But of course, what's important is to get those reports 2 weeks before the meeting.
That's not a problem.
Good.
Yes, ma'am.
That way we have time to really think it
Yeah,
over.
absolutely.
And the city has the advantage of knowing how much money they're going to have, so their projects should be easy to budget. I mean, you know what you got, what you're going to have, and you can't exceed it. I mean, that would be easy to slot that.
In some cases, true. In the case of certain intersections and road improvements, again, it hasn't been engineered. There's not been estimates of what the costs would be. So we're still identifying and still getting those costs. So that's part of it. Some of them we are very advanced and ahead, and some of them we're still trying to fill in the $4 million.
Well,
If we were to budget it all out, we're not ready to budget the whole SPLOST of the $4 million out on the street paving.
but even a timeline of when you'll be doing the engineering will move us ahead
Sure.
in terms of when that engineering
Yeah.
studies would be completed. Because I can't understand Mary Rose Park, for instance, at all.
Okay.
Mary Ross Park, but that, I think that is an old.
I think Mary Ross Park's been on every one.
I
of
think
them.
that's an old.
I mean, that ought to be a dazzling jewel.
Let's do some organizational conversation. In our first year, as it says in our bylaws, we're to meet quarterly. We determined that probably because the projects were all just getting started, that quarterly would work. But we did, I think, maybe running twice have a special.
Right.
And that special was in between a quarterly. Looking at the coming year, let's say we're on almost a fiscal year here from May 1 to May 1, April 30th, it seems to be, because we started around this time last year. How do you see frequency? I think we had agreed that if there was a problem that required a meeting, we'd just have the meeting, just special with appropriate notice and so forth. But basically, are you comfortable planning to meet quarterly and then from time to time meeting more frequently if issues require? Or would you rather meet more often? Just give me a little feedback on that before we start talking about the calendar itself. Jane, how do you feel?
Oh, thank you for starting with me, Bob.
I'm picking on you.
Well,
because I like that.
one of the things I was thinking was certainly since we're all on email and everybody seems to be responding pretty quickly to email, we certainly keep the ball in the air using email in between meetings.
Mm-hmm.
For example, at 2 weeks before the meeting, reminders to everybody of the work that we should be receiving so we can study it
Mm-hmm.
in advance. As far as more frequent meetings, I'll say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, quarterly isn't much, so I would say once a month,
Mm-hmm.
especially when projects are ongoing.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I think if we were to go to a monthly meeting, again, as I've asked a couple times to the committee, is I would look to move the meeting to later in the day where it's a little bit more
Yeah,
accessible.
that's my other question. Is how do we feel about
yeah.
time of day?
Yeah. So, I mean, even if it's 5:30 or something like that, I know it puts a little challenge on some of the staff, but I think we're talking about maybe their workload being a little bit less in terms of,
Ronnie's been
So that's
very sensitive to how much personal time of the county staff we tie up.
Mhm.
So could I ask Alan maybe to step up on that one? If we started to have our meetings at the end of your business day, would you feel that was, we're tying up the senior management of the county in this room right now. Is that a good idea? Can we do better?
We're here to support the committee, so whatever works best for you, we're here to support.
Jesus, is he running for something? He got my vote.
Do you have flex time for your employees, Alex? Do you have flex time?
Most of the people that would be attending your meeting are exempt employees, so it's all relative.
They're not 9 to 5. Okay.
Ronnie's been very good at keeping the meetings to an hour, and I think that would need to be a sort of an understanding that if we ask someone to join us at 5:30, that they're not going to be sitting around till 9 o'clock or something. So that'd be good. Can you have an open bar on county property?
Second.
There's just something sacred about that 5 o'clock hour.
I'm trying to get a cigar club started. Can we do cigars? Do you smoke cigars, Jane?
Oh, sure. Whatever.
I know.
Whatever works.
Mary knows. I know she smokes cigars.
I guess what we're really asking is kill us with information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be scared to send us information because we need that. And I'm not sure we need to meet monthly, maybe bi-monthly. And then as the projects begin to start, if we see that we need to meet monthly, we can. But if we go to a monthly meeting now, I'm not sure we're going to make enough progress in the 30-day period to justify getting back together.
Yeah, we really don't want to become high maintenance to the county staff. So.
But if we have the information, we can make decisions by email.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really what I was implying.
Well,
yeah.
I'd be careful about that since we are a public committee and we should be meeting in a venue where public, if they want, could have input.
Yeah.
So,
No, every meeting we have has
so
to be
what we're
public.
doing in email, I don't know the legal ramifications of that.
You can share information, you just can't take votes.
I think at quarterly meetings, at least for the next year, will work fine. The two special meetings we had, one was just because the Water and Sewer Commission had not understood that they were to make a presentation at the first meeting, so they came to the second. We had a special meeting for that, and that really wasn't a special meeting. It was just a way to include them. And then the other meeting was to discuss something that was happening imminently. The letting of the RFPs for the traffic circles, and so I don't think we've had a call this year for more than quarterly meetings.
Well, let me suggest that for the balance of 18, let's try to meet every 60 days. Not monthly and it's not quarterly, and just try it and see. Supported by email. If that works for us, matches up well with the flow of information, our ability to absorb it, talk about it, and so forth. And maybe around Thanksgiving we can look at that and say 6 months and say, okay, we're comfortable with this, let's go back to quarterly, let's move it up to monthly, whatever. How would you folks feel about that? Let's do a 60-day interval. So,
I don't have any problem.
I don't have a problem with that.
and
We've got a meeting set for April 19th at 9:30 already. If we want to change that, we need to change that today too.
and then the 5:30 time be a better time for everybody.
And I think it puts us in a better position to be more transparent for our public, for people
Sure
to be able
does.
to attend the meetings.
Right.
And Mr. Chairman, if we are going to be meeting in 60-day intervals, could you publish a list of the proposed meeting dates
Yes.
in advance, 60, for the next 6 months? Because
I'll
I have a
an
schedule
email out
that
in the next
involves
day
travel.
or two suggesting some dates. First of all, we'll look. There is a meeting. What's today?
Today's the 22nd of March.
Yeah. So the 19th sounds pretty close at this
Yeah.
point.
I had it for the 8th.
So
18th.
It's actually the 18th.
18th.
18th is
18th
Wednesday.
of April.
It's a Wednesday.
So let me suggest within a day or so by email a schedule for the balance of the year, and it'll resemblance of a 60-day interval schedule.
Fine.
And we'll set the meeting for 5:30 and promise ourselves hour-long meetings, and we'll appoint a bartender for each meeting.
Just as a point of, does those meeting dates need to be part of the public record and motion and voted upon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I don't think we're at liberty to meet unless it's a public meeting. Yeah, this is a public.
But I guess just my point was,
Yeah.
if we all agree on it via email, we got to make sure at the next
Yeah.
meeting is on the agenda that we have those.
I assume, but I shouldn't presume, that you ladies both understand that this meeting is being televised right now. Your friends are watching it.
That's why we got so dressed up.
Oh, is
Took
that
our
right?
blue jeans off, got gussied up.
Okay, so.
We just need to set a date for the next meeting,
And then we can.
and then you can present us with the schedule for the rest of the year at that time.
All right.
Let's do something in
Good.
June then.
Y'all want to push it back to June?
I don't see, except for the, except for reformatting some of this material, I don't see that anything is going to happen materially between now and June, which is 75 days from now.
It's fine.
Can I ask a question of staff? How much work goes into preparing these reports for the committee? Do you have a rough idea on staff hours that goes into preparing a report?
I know from our perspective, we only have a couple of projects. I'm going to say maybe 3 or 4 hours total. The bigger challenge I see for us, though, is we can meet the 2-week deadline, but we had changes, significant changes, right up until a couple of days ago. So you can get the information from 2 weeks ago, but at the rate we're going on projects, it's going to be old news. FYI.
Mm-hmm.
We can give you the 2 week and maybe give you a supplemental the day of the meetings, if that would help.
That would be great.
That would be great.
I think that's definitely adequate.
I guess what I'm looking for is I want to know as soon as I can if the project's going to be over budget. As soon as the staff sees that they've got a budget issue with the project, we need to be put on alert because we need to know why, what caused it, so we can make the appropriate action.
Mr. Howard, do you use these spreadsheets for your management or your staff use it for management of the projects, or what do you use for management?
We use that, the county SPLOST team, if you will, we meet every month. And we make sure that everything's moving like it's supposed to be and address any problems. So from our standpoint, that sheet is updated each month. So to update it for your meeting, I mean, essentially it's already updated. So there's really no, additional.
So this is the tool that you use to manage the projects.
Yes, sir.
And how do you manage internally?
Internally, we're working the department to department, so I don't have a format like that. I work through the finance department, get the information on the projects from each of the directors, and then this is made through finance, but it's not something we normally use. We make it specifically. I'd say very similar to Mr. Junk, and it's probably 3 or 4 hours to put it together, and if we bring it to you 2 weeks early, it's going to be we'll use a little bit as well. But we'd be willing to give you updates.
Okay, how would you feel about Wednesday, the 23rd of May at 5:30 for our next meeting? 1st of April, minutes of this meeting. 1st of May, agenda for the May meeting. And first week of May, the materials for the May meeting. Would that conform with everything we've been talking about? I think that's everything.
I'm sorry, did you say Wednesday the 23rd?
Wednesday, the 23rd? Is that
The 23rd is actually a Monday, so
Really?
the 25th.
No,
is-
May.
May.
Oh, sorry.
I know that's wrong.
I apologize.
May 18th.
That's a day after
There's something happening on May
That's a day
22nd.
after the primary elections.
I think we know that date, don't we?
That may be kind of a crazy time.
And then,
So minutes by the 1st of April. Agenda by the 1st of May. Materials, source materials that we've been discussing from all the entities sometime in the first week of May, close of business Friday. And then the meeting at 5:30 on the 23rd. So I think that addresses all of the floating issues, timing, blah, blah, blah. And I think the materials, Phil and Lance and I will try to get a memo together in the next few days. Here's what we really want to see, and we'll ask the entities, the reporting entities, to do whatever they need to do to reconfigure their materials to address the issues that will be in that guidance. Am I right, Dr. Phillip?
Yeah, I think as long as we can get something to them in the next week and
Yeah.
pass it around the
Yeah.
committee as far as the format, that
Right.
would be.
I'll put out an email today to get a date for the three of us.
Sounds great.
Good.
We could probably just do it on email.
Okay, May 23rd, 5:30.
All right, a few minutes remaining. I'd like to keep it to an hour. Let's go back to the, we've done our date stuff. Anything further on the roles of the committee, the Citizens Oversight Committee? Any other suggestions or thoughts or ideas? I think I hope we're conveying that we intend to be very active in our oversight.
Yeah. I mean, I would like the chairman to entertain a motion that we set a firm requirement of ourselves that we present both to the city commission, the county commission, and the joint water and sewer board on maybe a quarterly basis of just an update from our group of what we're seeing and alert to them any specific problems or concerns.
When Bob Brown came in from the SPLOST to tell us how they work, they do it with an annual report. But I think if you'd like to try a quarterly report, why not try it?
I mean, and it's kind of open for discussion. I just think we need to get something in place and make sure that we're firm and we
Yeah.
stick with it. You know, maybe it doesn't need to be quarterly, maybe,
Yeah.
you know, biannually or something, but
Matt, how about, say, a month after the close of the quarter in question?
Well, I
Will we be
think
able to have?
I'd like to move that we report. We make an effort to report twice a year to the City Council, Board of Commissioners, and the Joint Water Sewer Board.
Yeah.
Our view
Yeah.
of the progress
Right.
that the agencies are making, and hopefully that report will also be publicly available through the newspaper or through just minutes of that
Right.
meeting.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a budget to
Well, we have
print.
two appointing authorities who put us here, and I think our partners, the commission, should serve the water.
But
commission.
we don't have a budget to print or to advertise an annual report, so, you know.
We can request anything we want.
Well, I like to just, as a form of a resolution, that we prepare
Yeah.
a report and present it twice a year, beginning in sometime in the fall. Between the month of October and November, we present our first report to those.
The SPLOST law requires that the entity publish a budget once a year in the paper of record. It's not much of a breakdown,
Right.
but they are supposed to publish one.
Really.
Along that line, one of the pieces of materials that we did not receive is the sales tax revenue.
Yeah, we didn't get that today.
Yeah. I think if
Are
we need
we-
money
Alan
for
was
something, we
gone.
can ask the commission.
Are we on target? No, Alan's
Mr. Chairman, as a member of the public, I'm confused. Did you make a motion?
I did.
That's what I thought I heard.
I made a motion that we report twice a year to the boards of the Joint Water Sewer Commission, the county commissioners, and to the City Council of Brunswick on the status of SPLOST projects in terms of their, what are the three words, efficiency, transparency, and timeliness.
And the content of the report is yet to be defined.
Oh, well, on the projects, I forget the exact words that were as part of the resolution, but it's the timeliness, efficiency, and transparency, I think was were the three elements. I could look that up, but that's my motion.
That's your motion, okay. Would there be a
So a
second?
semi-annual report.
Semi-annual.
That's what, twice a year.
I second
All right, let's discuss that. Phil, what do you think when would the first one be?
I think in the fall sometime.
Yeah.
October, November would be
Uh-huh.
a good time. The November's election, so we maybe want to do it in October.
Well,
If we're looking for more transparency, I think it should be more frequent.
I'm not sure we have enough to say twice a year, more than twice a year.
you know,
Yeah, because this thing's not going to move real fast. It'll move faster after the third year than it will any time.
right.
But this thing's not going to get insurmountable from year to year for the next couple of years. Because some of this stuff's not even on the agenda in 2020.
One reason I really like that motion, Philip, is it gives the reporting entities, the city, the county, and the commission, something to look forward to. Geez, we're going to have a piece of publicity in October. Our SPLOST committee is going to report on how well we're doing. We really need to hit that button. So to me, that would be offering incentive to everyone to really help out.
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity to say, hey, these are the things we've completed or are on track and looking great, and then here are a couple areas of concerns. So that way those entities then can help follow up with their staff, so we're not the only people that's throwing the red flag up to say, hey, we need to jump on this.
I'm in favor of a report, and I'm not opposed to a semi-annual report, but having been a Fed and a state employee, as a Fed, our semi-annual report to Congress was the tail that wagged the dog sometimes. That we had certain requirements that we had to meet in that report, and if we didn't, staffers from members of Congress would hold us accountable for doing it. So that's why I asked about the content. We got to be real careful about what we promise and what we deliver in the content of the report. To a lesser extent, with the state IG here in Georgia, they have an annual report to the governor, not to the legislature, but to the governor. So just a word of caution.
Yeah.
That's all.
Can I ask staff is there a requirement internally, for example, Jim, for you to report on SPLOST updates to the city commission annually, or?
Is there a requirement in SPLOST law? Is that what
No,
you're
no,
asking?
no, no, just internally within the city. Like, do you have a regular scheduled reporting?
They're reported to, the commission is given a report on SPLOST monthly to the commission.
Right.
The finance
in the
reports.
finance report. Okay. Okay.
Okay, any other comments on the motion? Mary? No comments? Ron? Anything on that? This Ron? Anything on that? Ron number one and Ron number, no,
Ron and Ronnie.
I think I've said enough.
Good. They used to accuse Hubert Humphrey of something called pleonasm. And pleonasm is the use of more than one word where one word would be more than enough. So. Miss Jane, any comments?
Oh, I've made too many already.
Yeah, good. All right, well then, let's start the motion. All in favor? I think we voted for that motion. Any objections? Thank you. Motion passed.
So we'll prepare for a
Right.
report sometime next fall.
I think motion to adjourn, is that what you just made?
No, I mean, I actually would like to bring up as another time to talk about, for maybe the next meeting or future meeting, is future SPLOST. Because it's not long that we're getting out of it, that the entities need to be thinking about projects in advance so that they're not going to be surprised with a project list the day before the county commission meets.
There needs to be some forethought before SPLOST.
Right. So
Because the projects that are on the list are the projects that should be done. And it should be presented to the public in a way they can understand it. And those are the projects that should be done. They shouldn't be shuffling of money from one to the other or whatever. We shouldn't be in a position where the city doesn't have a list. It's going to be hard to oversee something that you don't have anything to oversee. But we just need to prepare for this, and then it'll be a whole lot smoother.
Well, we need to keep in mind we sort of have an historic role. We're the first SPLOST committee, Oversight committee, that the county has had, not counting the East SPLOST. And I know we all feel strongly we need to do a good job so that the voters will appreciate how much benefit there is from the SPLOST and be encouraged to have more SPLOST.
Right.
And that's timely because the paper this morning was talking editorially right on that topic. Is how do we decide what we get and when we get it next and so forth. So, motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Aye. We'll see you shortly.